Hello and welcome back to Concept First to Mastery. In this section, we'll be moving on to CSS selectors and properties. So this is going to be fun in the sense that we are going to build this elegant yet simple screen, right? It allows you, this project is going to allow you to learn the different types of selectors, right? The common CSS properties that we have, and also how to use them. So you are learning and you're also building. That's the best way to learn. So let's get right into it. So yeah, this is what we are building, right? Just like the practice is, right? We are going to start with the HTML. We'll try to structure the HTML, then we'll go into the CSS and also touch some theoretical stuff. Just like I've always done, let's do this. Let's create a new folder that represents the project, right? Let's just do that here and say, let's call this elegant blog. Let me use hyphen. Elegant blog with CSS selectors, right? So that's the name of the folder that represents the project. Then you can bring up your command prompt just so that we can open this in our VS Code, right? So if there are other ways that you're already convenient with, you can also do that. So I'll just go dots to open that. All right, so we have this open now. Currently, it's empty, right? So let's just create a new file, index.html, and let's just have some boilerplates, right? I want to believe if you have not watched the HTML series that we've done, or you are very new to this, I will advise that you watch the HTML series that we've covered. I'll leave the link in the description. Also, you can just click on the box, right? That is just at the top right corner of this particular video. All right, let's continue. So this is going to be my elegant blog. All right. We are going to be, we'll in the last section, we spoke about the different ways of styling, right? We spoke about the internal style, we spoke about the inline style, then we spoke about the external style. And I've mentioned that the external style is the best, right? So I'm also going to follow that route, right? So let's just say main.css, that is our CSS file. So nothing here now, but we want to be sure that this is working first. Let's just do a quick test. So I'm just going to have heading1, right? And I'm just going to say, let's have color of red. So if I can see this, I know that the CSS is connected, right? So yeah, what we can do is to just open this in the browser. All right, so you can see that we are not seeing anything. And of course, that is correct because we do not have heading1 here. So we can just say my blog. Then we check here, we can see my blog, but you can see that the style is not applied. And we are correct because there is nothing connecting this particular HTML, this document with this CSS. So now we need to connect it by using the link flag or link element now. So the link element allows to pass the attributes, which is the relationship attribute, and the value is style sheet. Then here in the href attributes, you pass the path to where the CSS file is, right? In our case, is directly in the same directory as the main.css. So we just say /main.css, or I mean it's in the same directory as index.html. Both of them are inside this folder. So that's the directory. If we were to be outside, we might need to step out, right? But that's not what we are doing. We are currently in the root directory of the project. So if I come back here and check, we can see that the CSS is applied. So this is, when you start doing all these, there will be bugs, and these are just ways to avoid bugs. So you might not even know where the error is. So that's why when you are setting up like this, it's always good that you confirm that your CSS is actually properly connected. So that one is out of the way. So what I want to do here is to actually split the screen so that we can see what we are doing. Windows right. Okay, no, I want it to be on the left. So Windows left, that gives us the space. Then this one, right? I want this to be on the right side so that we can see simultaneously what is going on. Then here I will say Windows right. So we'll splitted the screen to two now. We can be looking at what we are doing here while we continue writing our code. All right. So the next thing we want to do here quickly is to set up the HTML, right? So, but before I do that, you will notice that, let me just reference this. You will notice that I used some icons here. So let's have those icons set up. So these are font awesome icons, right? And the way to do that is to actually visit fontawesome.com, and you will see different icons that you can use. But before you can use these icons, you need to connect. So I want to actually connect to the CDN, right? Where I can actually reference those, I can have reference to where those icons are and have access to them directly. So what we can just do is go to just type CDN. So CDN GS library, click on it. So you are going to see this, right? CDN GS, just click on it. And here you have, you go to the library section, just click on this icon, go to library section. On the library section, you can search actually, we have many libraries here, React.js, you can see here. But what we are looking for is Font Awesome. You just scroll down and okay, here is Font Awesome. So you can see the iconic SVG font and CSS 2K. So this allows us to just link directly to this, and we can start using the font awesome icon tags in our HTML. So let's okay, we have options here: the URL, the link tag, and this. So usually it's common to use the link tag. I'll just copy the link tag. All right, it just come down to, we have two style sheets now: the one that is local, right, and the one that references the CDN, the font awesome CDN from CDN, right? So here we have style sheet. Both of them are style sheet, but this is external, right, linking to a CDN, and this one is the local that is being referenced here, right? Take note of that. So with that now, I can now begin to actually use icons. For instance now, right, you might have hi here, and just say here, can just say class FA, let's say FA-user. I want to believe that there should be an icon with this. So by the time I come back to here, here, all right, so you can see now that I had to refresh. So you can see now that we have that user icon. You might be wondering, how do I know this, right? So you go to the library, Font Awesome, and you can use any icon from here, right? Some of them are not free, while others are free. So you can just check here for any icon. SVG, emojis are here, science fictions, all categories. You can check them out, right? If you want something like this, right? Let me just show you the basic usage. maybe you want I, right? You just click on it and it's going to give you the code that represents that. And can you see now? FA solid, FA high, right? It just happened that I'm already used to this and I know that there is a class like that. So let's move away from that. Then let's go to, let me go back to what we are demonstrating here. So we have the header section. So let's write the HTML for that. Let me just remove this. This is just for practice, just to show you what I was doing. So here, let's have in the body, let's have header, right? So again, if you have not watched the HTML series, just try to do that if this is new to you. So in the header section, we are going to have an ID, right? So these are classes that, these are attributes that I'm going to actually target to style this page. So I'm going to call this main header. So I'm using ID, right? And that means that that is the only, this is going to be the only main header, right, that I have on this page. So if I want this to be more than one, then ID will not be the right thing to use, the right attribute to use. It will be class, right? So inside here, let's have heading 1. Then inside heading 1, let's have this text, right? I can as well copy, or let's just type my elegant blog, right? So you see that there's an icon here and we already set up to use icon. Let's just do that. So here we are going to have I, right? So that's the element for presenting icon. Then we have, we are going to have a class on that so that we can style it. And this is going to be FA, okay, not so that we can style it, so that we can use that particular icon, this particular icon, right? FAS, the class that represents is FAS, pen nib, FAS, FA pen nib, right? So once I do that, I expect that icon to be actually available. Then we can go down just immediately after this, right? We have the navigation section, the about, the post, and the contact. Each of them also having icons. So let's also have that. So the right, since this is navigation, we have what we call the nav element, right? We are not just writing all these things. I'm not bothering explaining them in detail again because I've done that already, right? Here we have in the UL, or in the nav element, let's have the UL, right? So which represents another list. Then inside the another list is expecting list element as the children. So we are going to have list, right? So inside this list, right, we then have our items. So here we need, don't forget that this is clickable, which means that they are meant to navigate to different pages, right? So the element for that is actually the anchor element. And this is going to have an attribute called href, which is what allows us to actually set where we want to link to. And I will just say hash, let's have the about first, like we have on the already designed one. So we have about, and then we are just inside here, inside the element itself, right? The anchor element, we are going to have about, right? Then just beside the about, we have the icon. So let's have the icon, which is going to be I. And then the class that represents that icon, which is this user icon, is class equal. So we can have FAS, FA dash user, right? Yeah, I think that's straightforward. Then we can duplicate what we have now, right, to represent others. So here too, we have 3 more, each of them in list item. The next one is posts, right? And here we can just have posts. And here the icon that represents post here is FA newspaper, right? FA news paper. Then we also have the contacts, right? So contacts, and here the icon there is envelope, right? And here we just have contacts. So we are here to apply any CSS, so you won't have the colors and all these effects. So let's just see what we've done thus far. If I come back here, so you can see that the icons are there, right? And all what we've done, they are there. So again, this project is the best way to actually learn these things, right? You are doing a mini project and you're applying what you've learned immediately. Now that we are done with that section, let's check out the about section, right? The about section. Immediately after outside the header, because we are now outside the header section, right? We can now have the about me section. Here we have the header section. So I'm going to actually leave the GitHub link to this particular project so you can check it out if you also want to check it out. So here we have, let's just use section again, section. Then here we are going to say, we are going to use ID of about, right? Then we have heading. So this is heading 2. Actually, I would have loved to inspect this for you so you see, but I know it's heading 2. So that is heading 2 elements, page 2. And you just have the text about me, right? Then what else? Then we have this text, right? This text. So let's also have that. Underneath heading 2, we have the paragraph elements, right? And we have this text. So let me just copy it instead of you watching me type all this out. This text. All right. So you will notice that there we have some colors, right? We have some part of it styled with this yellow color, right? In order to do that, I will need to add a class, right? So that I can use that to actually style. And we have web development, right? So just here, web development, I'm going to actually have a span element. Span element is an inline element, right? And it just allows us to target specific part of some text or whatever, or specific part of some elements, whatever you need to target actually. And then I can now place a class on it and style that specific part only. So here I'm going to have class of highlights, right? So we're just highlighting that particular part, right? I'm going to repeat this for some parts. So we also have technology trend, right? Here also, I will also need that. It's the same class. This is where class becomes useful, right? Just one class, and we are going to style every other places where it's occurred. Here, we are going to have this also span, and it's closed. So I'll need to move this into it so that it becomes its content, right? Just like that. All right. So we have those classes that we help us target that part for style. Now we move to the next section, which is the post section. So we're outside this section now, and we now have the post section. So in the post section, we're also going to have section, right? And just inside here, we are going to have a class or an ID, just like we've been doing it. You know, we have ID for each section. So, and since we are only going to have, since they are sections, they are unique, right? So here we have ID of posts. Then inside there, we have this latest post, right? latest post. So, and it's also going to be heading 2. So you can see that I'm consistent with the titles. Here we have about me heading 2. Here too, I have another heading, which is still going to be heading 2. So each section is having that consistent heading elements, which is heading 2. So here we are going to have latest posts. Latest post. We also have an icon to the side of this. Okay, I think I didn't do that for this. Let me just quickly do that. For about me, yeah, we have that icon. So for latest posts, we have I. Then the class we want is class equals FAS. So we want FAS, that should be FA code, right? FAS FA code. Okay, no, that code is this, right? I want the one for the star. Okay, I think I remembered. So here I did not use this is actually not on the elements, right? But I'm going to introduce it with CSS. So that's even good, right? So let's just continue. These stars are not from font awesome, right? And I will show you how to do that. So here under post, we do not have a font awesome there. Then underneath that, we have a div, right? Why am I using a div here? Because just if you look at this section, this is a blog article, right? So each blog should have a title. So this is going to be the title of this blog. This is going to be the title of this one. And each blog also has more like description, right? And other things. So it's just normal to package them into a div, right? Here I'm going to have class of posts. And then I'm just going to have H3 as the title, right? Here we can just use this. Just like that. Understanding CSS selectors. So this one now is from Font Awesome, and I'm going to actually use that. So here we are going to have an icon, and this is going to be class name of FAS-FA code, right? So this is a code icon. Then once we've add that, we can now also wrap this in paragraph so that it represents what we are dealing with, right? So here we are going to have this as paragraph. So now that we have this as paragraph, this is going to have a class of I'm deliberately using these classes because I know that I will use them for styling, right? Post content. So that's that. Then this one, you can see that this is a link and it's clickable, more like when you need to read more, right? So this one is introduced with CSS. So that's why I'm not talking about it. It's not there. Underneath the paragraph, we then have, since it's clickable, it should be a link, anchor element. And there is a text to it which says read more, right? This also is introduced, this icon here is introduced with CSS, right? Then here, for this to work, it needs the href attribute. I'm just going to say hash for now, meaning it goes nowhere. Then in order to target this read more and style it, because you can see that it's having this special style, I'm going to place a class on it, and the class is going to be called read more. All right. So we have that section. If you are thinking like, if you are thinking ahead, right, you should know that this is exactly going to be what we have here. The only thing that is changing is just the style, right? So here we can just have just duplicate this and have this. So we still have class of post. Okay, this one should have, this should have class of post title, post title, right? And I will also ensure that this H3 is having that H3 here, post title, right? So we are done with that section. And you can see that I reuse the class names, right? Because it's just the same style. And that gives you an insight into when you should use class and when you should use ID, right? So now that we are done with that, what else do we need to target? The content are different, right? So this one is JavaScript, JavaScript Essential, right? And the text here is JavaScript, just like that. All right. So now that we have this, let's just look at what we have thus far, right? So here you can see that it's looking like it's not styled yet, but we are in line with what we have on the design here, right? So let's move to the last phase of this, which is the footer section, right? The footer section, so let's go to the last section, which is the footer, right? I know that some of these things can be difficult for beginners. That's why I'm just taking my time to explain like this, so that there's a time everything will just click, right? But you just have to take these baby steps. So this is going to be footer elements. So we have an element that is called footer. And of course, I want to believe you know what footer section represents. So in here we have this, right? So I'm just going to use, I'm going to put them in a paragraph element, right? I'm going to put them in a paragraph element. I'm just going to have this short code and pass and copy, right? So that's actually going to translate to this copyright symbol. Then I'm going to have 2024, right? Then I'm going to have this my elegant blog, right? We just have this follow me text. So that's what we have there. Then underneath here, we are going to have, you can see that we have some links right along here. We're also going to have that. And the links here are just going to be anchor, because you can see that they are clickable, right? So anchor elements. And we're going to have href of it's going nowhere. I'm just going to have hash. Then inside each link, you can see that we have icons. So we have the Twitter icon, and that is going to be class of FAB, right? Then we have FA Twitter. I've shown you where you can actually get all these things, right? If you go to Font Awesome and search for it, you're going to get exactly all this. FA Twitter. Then we can just duplicate this, right, for the remaining three. Then this one is going to be FA GitHub. Then this one also is going to be FA LinkedIn. In. All right, so let's take a look at what we have. We are making progress, right? So you can see now that this is great. So what is now left for us is to actually style this so that it looks exactly like what we have here, right? So yeah. Now let's move on to the CSS. So I wouldn't want a situation whereby I'm just, because that's what you see these days, right? You just say, okay, CSS, type color this, type color that, and you don't even know what colors are. You don't know the rules. You don't know. That's not how to learn programming, right? So for everything you are doing, there's a reason. you're either following rules or some set of concepts and all that. So let's just quickly look at some things that I used here, right? That needs to get you up to speed when it comes to using CSS and working with CSS, right? So we've been talking about CSS selectors, right? And CSS selectors and properties. So quickly, what are CSS selectors? CSS selectors are simply targets, right? They are simply targets. And what they do is that they target elements, right? And in other words, once you target an element, you are then able to style it, right? So that's the whole aim. Selectors are meant to select a particular element on the page and then styling. So we have different ways of selecting the element on the page, which is what we'll be looking at. You need to be versed with the use of this, right? You need to be okay and cool with the use of this to be able to work with CSS very well. So we also have properties. So all these things you saw here, right? They actually, okay, I don't want to split this. They are actually CSS properties, right? Okay, let me move back here. Yeah, here. All the things you saw here, right? This yellow color, then when I hover here, the color change, right? All those things are CSS, vast CSS. You can see the background color and all that. So you need to be aware of CSS properties, right? And how to use them. So once you know what selectors are and how to use them, properties and how to use them, then you are good to go. You just need to keep increasing your wealth of knowledge concerning the properties that are available, right? So types of selectors, we have element selector. So this selector targets HTML elements by their tag name. So just like the name implies, element selector, meaning that we are using an element as a selector, as a target, right, to a particular element on the page. So for instance, now you can see the syntax here, element. Then we have the curly braces. In between that curly braces is where you can actually start writing the properties and the value that each property will have. For instance, now we are using paragraph, which is a standard HTML element as a tag, as a selector, right? And we have the property we have here is color, right? And we are saying the value should be blue. So we can have other things, right? So as I'm doing this also, I don't just want this to be as much as I want to be quick with this, I don't also want this to just be rushed over, right? Let me just do it like this. At the very top here, I'll just put the paragraphs here. Okay, let's just say, okay, I think I already have paragraph, right, on the page. Yeah, I already have some paragraphs. So let's just quickly use that to test. So let's say here I'm saying paragraph, and I'm saying color should be blue, right? Color should be blue. Then if I come back to, so if I come back here, the paragraphs should be blue. So you can see now all the paragraphs are blue, right? So as simple as that. Then the second one is class selector. So you can see that while I was trying to present the HTML, I used several classes, right? There's a class here called post content, and that class here called post title, and all that. So classes actually allows us to style many things at the same time. So the class selector is used to select elements with specific class attribute, right? And the thing you can do with this is that you can then style multiple elements that are having that class at the same time, right? So the way you style classes, right, is you use dots, then the name of the class, right? For instance, now let's say I have highlights on the I have a class attribute, right, with a value of highlights. By the time I want to style it, I will use dot. So dot is used for class, right? When I get to ID, you will see that the way we style ID, right, is going to be different. For instance, now if you look at this page, I have class of highlights somewhere, right? Where is that? So you can see this class of highlights. So if I want to style it now, I can just come here and say, since it's a class, I will say dot highlights, right? Dot highlights. So let's say background color of green. All right, so by the time I come back here, so you can see that those two places where I have the class highlights have background color of green. So this is just to demonstrate quickly what is happening here. We are still going to remove all that, right? So then we have ID selector. The ID selector is used to select an element with specific ID attribute, right? So IDs are unique within a page, so they should be used to target only one element. And you will notice that in the way I set up my own HTML here, I never use the same ID twice. So if there's any reason I need to use the same ID twice, then I will need to change it to class. So this main header is the only ID here. About is the only ID here, right? So we never have two of them at the same time. Then how do you style ID? You use hash. For class, we use dot, right? Or period. So here we're using hash. So let's just say I want to style this main header, right? This main header, which is having ID, I could easily use dots. And I can say let's have background color of this, right? Hopefully that will be, let me just remove all these since we have demonstrated that. So if I come back here and hash main header, okay, not, so you can see now it's not dots. That's why selectors are important. The right use of the selectors are important. I'm using dots, but the ID or main header here is an ID, right? It's not a class. So that means I'll need to change this to hash, right? Since it's an ID. So you can see that immediately I did that, the background color of this particular header changed. So we are coming back to that. And that's why I said, whatever I'm going to explain here, I'm also going to use it to style this particular mini project. Then we have universal selector, right? So universal selector actually targets all elements on the page. It targets all elements on the page. And there are times that it becomes useful, especially when you want to reset or apply a particular style to all elements. So here, properties how to use it, star, right? This asterisk, then property and the value. So you can see here, margin of 0, padding of 0. So this is actually saying that on this particular document, all elements should have margin of 0 and padding of 0. We usually do this because at times the browser or the agents actually have their own specific style by default or default style that they are add. So you just notice that your documents are having default margin and padding that you never applied. So in order to avoid those confusions, you just reset by using this asterisk, right, that targets all the elements and ensures that they are all reset back to 0. If you don't know what margin and padding is as we go along, you get to know that. So here now, if I want to target all elements on the page, you just say asterisk, right? Asterisk, then you say padding of 0, then padding of 0. Then you also have margin of 0. So before I save it, actually I know that it should have an application on this. So just take note of this. You see that this particular header is not close to this edge. That's because by default we have the browser style right in place. But once I save this, can you see all those default paddings and margins are gone, right? So if I remove it, again, if I remove it, the browser default will be applied, right? If I remove it, you can see now that we have those default paddings and margin. So at times you want that removed, right? So that all confusions are taken away. And that's it with universal selectors. We also have attribute selectors. There are times that the way you select element on the page is via attributes. Don't forget, I've already explained what attributes are in the HTML series. So these are attributes. Class A is an attribute, and these are the attribute. These are the value. So href is an attribute, right? So there are times that you target an element based off these attributes. These ones are common attributes, class and ID. We've talked about them. So there are times that, okay, for instance, now this href, it might be what you are targeting, right? And that will be what you are using to say, this is the element I want to style. So it's actually straightforward. Attribute selectors allow you to target elements based on the presence or value of an attribute. You can see the syntax here. So it must go into square bracket, right? Elements, then the property, the value. You can see example here. We have an input field, right, with type of text. So this just specifically selects all input fields with type of text. So every other input fields that are not type of text will not be styled. For instance, this is what I mean, right? You might just have something that says input, right? So usually you have type. I might just say button. You see that we have different types here. So let's say the one I'm looking for is text, type of text, right? And you can just have maybe a placeholder here that says name, right? So you might have other ones on the page. You might have other ones that are not type of text. So this one might be type of password. So, but with this attribute, if I want to target only elements that have type of text, right, with the attribute, all you just need to do is come here to the CSS part and just say square bracket, right, inputs, then you give it the value, right, just like that, and then you put this. So you just say here should be type equal to text, right? So you can now start writing what you want here. Maybe you want the color to be this, right? So this is how you actually use attributes to target a particular element on the page. Let's move away from that quickly. So this one now will just ensure that we have, okay, let me just use that. Let's say we have border, 2 pixel, solid, right? If you don't know this yet, don't worry. So this is just shortcuts or short syntax for saying we want the border, right, width to be 2 pixel, right? The type, we want it solid, we have different types, then the color, border color should be red. If we come here and check, right, usually, okay, let me see. Okay, this is supposed to be red. Do I have a typo? Yeah. There's a typo here. So this input, I think that's why syntax is very important, right? Input should be outside, that's the element. Then we should just have the type, just have this type equals. So the syntax is very important. If not, right, it's not going to work. You can see that now this is red. So I also like the fact that this is happening so that you know the importance of knowing how to use selectors properly. CSS is often a nightmare to many, but if you take your time to read the rules, you'll be just okay. All right, that's that with attribute selector. Then we have combinator selectors, right? So combinator selectors actually are used to define relationship between two or more selectors. You need to pay attention to this. Why you need to know this is that often when you are working, you might not even, when you need to write CSS yourself, you might not necessarily use this. There are times you avoid using combinator if you don't understand it. But there are times you need to read other developers' code and they are using it. So you need to know how to use it and understand what they mean. So combinators are also selectors. So the way they work is that they define relationship between two elements and allows you to actually apply some set of rules, right, based on that. So we have different type of combinators. We have descendant combinator. So the descendant combinator targets elements that are descendants. When you say descendants, you are referring to children or grandchildren of a specific element. For instance, now, if I have here, I have, let me remove this input field. So let's say I have this div. So I have this div, right? And inside this div, I have paragraph, right? And I'm just saying hello, right? So here, I might even have another div inside this particular, the first div. I might have another div, and I still have another paragraph there, right? And this one is saying, hi, John, right? So those are the things that we have. So I'm going to give this a specific class that makes it impossible, right? That is totally different from what we have already. I'll just say test. I know I don't have anything like test. So a combinator selector now, or a descendant selector, in this case, if you are targeting paragraph, paragraph is a descendant of this div, right? Then this one, this is more like a child, right? And this is more like a grandchild because we already have another div, it's nested. It's not a direct child of this div, but a grandchild. So you need to also understand those kind of relationships and explanations. So if I come here and say, if I say div paragraph, so descendant selector is often represented by space. So you can see the space here. If I say div paragraph space, and I put, let's just say color of this. So if I go back here, you'll see that it's going to style, where do I have that text displayed? So you can see hello here. Let me use a different color because it looks as though some stuff that we have here, or better still, you can see that it's interfering with this one. So let me just use the class name, dot text, right? Dot text. You can see that this is now taking that color purple, right? And it's not affecting others. That's because I'm specifically saying that I want only paragraphs that are descendant of this particular elements with a class of text, right? And that's what is happening here. You need to take your time to understand these things, right? You can see a text here is the parents. This is just a child, and this one is another child, but more like a grandchild, and two of them are actually styled. So that's it with descendant selector. A descendant combinator targets elements that are descendant of a specific element, and you use space, right? Then child combinators, or yes, child combinator. So this uses this greater than symbol, right? A child combinator selects elements that are direct children or specific element. So take note of that, direct children. And this is a symbol. This is the child, this is the parent. You have the greater than sign. Don't forget I said combinators actually use to define relationship between two elements. So we are saying for this rule to be applied, child here, right? This must be a child of this parent. That's what we are saying. Here now we are saying list must be a child of UL. If list is not a child of UL, this rule will not apply. That's what is happening there. So the best way to explain this is the one we have currently. This explanation I set up, I have a grandchild. So this is not a direct child of this, but this is a direct child. So if I want only this to be styled and not other ones, right? Only direct children, I can come here and just say, in between that, I might just put greater than, which is the child combinator selector, meaning that paragraph must be the direct child of text, not descendant, right? Not grandchild. So if I come back here and do this, you can see that only this takes that style. This is not affected because this is a grandchild. This is not a grandchild. This is a direct child, right? So I believe this is self-explanatory. Then we have adjacent sibling combinators. Adjacent sibling combinators. The symbol is plus. This might be too much for you, right, to grasp in a video. So you might need to rewatch it just to master these things. Once you've mastered it, it becomes interesting, right? The adjacent sibling combinator selects an element that is immediately preceded by a specific sibling. Again, let's see this example that I have here. So this might not work now because these are not siblings, right? Let me just look for, okay, let's say this paragraph. Okay, I have this text. Then let me put let me put H4 here, right? Let me just say I am adjacent sibling of text, right? Of text. So this is an adjacent sibling of this particular element with a class of text. So, and I want to confirm that. So let's say I want to style this and I want to use combinator selector, right? I will actually use this. I will just say text plus. So this, the relationship between text plus H4. So meaning that I'm saying that H4 must be an adjacent sibling, right, to this particular text for it to actually work. If I come back here, so you will see, can you see now? I am adjacent sibling and it's taking that room, right? So this is how to practice these things and get comfortable with them. They are very simple. Then let's move on to, I don't want this to be too long. Let's move on to general sibling combinator, right? The general sibling combinator selects all elements that are sibling of specific element. So don't forget the previous one was adjacent sibling. So this one now, whether it's adjacent or not, as long as they are siblings, it's going to style them, right? It's going to apply to them. And we use this swigglies symbol, right? If you check your PC, the key directly below the escape button, right? That's where you have it. So if I want that now, I can just say swiggly symbol here. So this is talking about general sibling selector. And if I come back here, so it's not just going to apply to this, it's going to apply to every other elements that are actually adjacent sibling. So I have just one now, and that's why it looks like this is the only one that is being styled, because I already niched it to this, right? So what I mean by that is this. If you look here, I have this class, so it already limits it to this particular div. So let's just move away from that quickly. I don't want us to waste time here. Then we have, okay, so we now have pseudo selectors and pseudo elements. We're almost rounding up these basic things you need to know to get up and running. So pseudo classes and pseudo elements. So what are pseudo classes? Pseudo classes are used to define special states of an element. So we have some pseudo classes that identifies the special states some elements are in, right? For instance, when an element is overdone, we have a class, right? A pseudo class that helps us have a hand on that state. So which is over, right? And the way you represent pseudo classes, the symbol is selector, then column, the pseudo class. So you just need to be aware of the pseudo class, the selector, column, the pseudo class. So here now we have a hover, meaning that when you hover on this anchor element, we should give it this property, color orange, right? So again, what we've been doing thus far, I have a class of text, right, which is the entire div here. So if I want to do that, I can come here and say text. I'll just put column here, which is how you use pseudo, right? Pseudo class. And here I will just say hover. So which allows me to actually identify okay, so just take note, there's no space. So when I come back here, right, and hover on this box, I expect, where is it? Okay, yeah, so you can see that when I hover, the color change to purple here, right here. When I hover, it does change to purple. So that's that effect. So those pseudo classes allow you to actually know the states of your interaction with an element and actually style, define some CSS properties and values, right, that you need to use. So that's just an example of a pseudo class, the hover. We also have the focus. Usually this is used for input fields, right? For instance, I have some input fields here. If I've not removed them, okay, I think I've removed the input field. Let me just do away with this for now. So let's say I have input field, right? So there are times that you need to know when your input field is in focus. So there's a state called focus. So here I can just say focus. focus. I'll just say here I'm going to use the element selector, which is input, right? Then I will say I want to target focus state. So if I come back to this particular example here, you can see that that style is not being, let me use something that you can see easily. So let's use red, right? So you see that that style is not currently applied, but the moment I focus, it should be applied. So I don't know whether you can see, but here, right, it's already applied. Can you see that cursor color red? If I want to apply border, maybe I should just do that. Border 2 pixel solid red, so that it becomes obvious. So when I do this, okay, so there are times that you have other properties overriding what you have currently, and I don't want to waste time on that. But what I know that you can see here is that on focus, the cursor color actually changed to red. And if I begin to type, you can see that the color actually changed, right? So then what else do I want to add? Then we have the end child. So this actually allows you to select elements based on their order in a document. So I might want to style based on the position or order of these elements on a document. I might want to give them colors, right? Usually this is used when you're working with tables. So you say all rows, right, that are actually odd, that in the odd position should have a specific color. Then the other ones should have different type of color. How can I quickly demonstrate this so that let me just remove this. And I don't want to go into tables right now. All right. Let me just use div. Let me just use div and paragraph. And I'll just say hello, hello1, right? And I'll just do this. hello2, hello3, hello4. So let's say this is 2, 3, and 4. All right, so let's just say here we have a class to actually target that. I'm just going to call this hello, right? So if I come back and just say dot hello, because it's a class, right? And here, you can easily say end child, right? End child. I'll just say odd, right? So then here I can just say background color of this, right? So okay, I'm not expecting all of them to be styled. Okay, I'm not expecting all of them to be styled. Okay, yeah, so that's because I'm actually targeting the div, right? So, but I want to target the paragraphs. So I'll just use the descendant selector here, paragraph. So don't forget, I've already explained what this space means. It means that paragraph must be a descendant of hello. And currently all these paragraphs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 are all descendants of this div with class of hello. So it means that whatever rules I have here, I'm now saying from these paragraphs, let's just give a background color of aqua to only the ones that are sitting in the odd positions. And if I save, so you can see that 1 is sitting in odd position, 2 is not odd, 3 is sitting in odd position, 4 is not odd, right? I will stop there. So we have other ones active, right? So you will pick up more of these things. My focus is to just let you know about these things and how to get up to speed with them, but you will still need to learn more as you continue to work on other projects, right? So pseudo elements, don't confuse this. We have pseudo classes. Those are the ones we've just finished working on, right? The next one is pseudo elements. Pseudo elements target specific parts of an element. Common pseudo elements include before and after. take note again, pseudo elements, what they do is that they target specific parts of an element. So you might have a pseudo element targeting the before of an element. You might have a pseudo element targeting the after of an element. Usually they will insert a symbol or text or whatever you desire to the before, to the after, and even apply some styles to it. So we are going to see that. And actually that is what I was doing here when I said that that's what I was doing here. So before this particular heading 2, I'm inserting this, right? After here, I'm inserting this. So just take notes of that. Just the usage now, the syntax, you have the selector. So the way you use pseudo class is different from the way you use pseudo element. So pseudo element now is going to have, for instance, let's say all the paragraphs that I have here. Let's say I'm removing this. And those paragraphs, let's say I want them to have after. So you can see these are pseudo elements. And these are all examples of how you will use pseudo element. But I'm going to be using before and after. So let's say after now. I'm saying after the, you can see that the other one, pseudo classes have just one column. Pseudo elements have 2 columns, right? Take note of that. So I'm saying after this, right? Then you can now define whatever you want to define. You can add content into it. And as you will see here, H1 before content, then paragraph. So let me just demonstrate this. So here now you can have content, and this will be actually whatever content you want. You can even still give a background color. So let me just use this content so that it's going to be clear, right? I have some here. So let me use this. Let me just copy this, or better still, this one. Let me just paste it here. So now I'm saying that after every paragraph that is inside the class of hello, right? Div with the class of hello. Let's have this this particular, okay. I want this to, let's have this particular emoji, right? If I come back here and check what we have, where is that place? Paragraph, hello paragraph, after. Okay, so I think I have a typo here because it's supposed to just show after each of these paragraphs, right? Okay, yeah. So yeah, it should be inside string. So syntax is very, very important. All right, so you can see that I have that now, and it's even the background style is there. So that means that you can do this from CSS and apply your styles from here and do whatever you want to do, right? I hope that is clear enough. Then you have other ways of using pseudo selectors or pseudo elements apart from the before and the after. You have the first letter and you have the first line. This just targets the first letter of the element. This targets the first line of the element, and you can apply whatever CSS rule that you want to apply, right? Then finally, common CSS properties, right? That you just need to be aware of. The first one, the common one, color, right? Many times you want to give a particular element color. So this is the text. This has to do with text color now. So, right, you have different ways of giving colors, right? You might use the name, right, which is what we are using here. You might even use, for instance, you might use something different from name. Like here now, you can see I have RGB, red, green, blue combination. So this is saying the red combination is 255, the green is 0, the blue is 0, and that gives me red. So I might have this here, which is hexadecimal, right? Representation of the same color. So different ways of representing same color. We even have RGBA. So then you already see me use some here. We have border. This is just a short cut, right? So if I wanted to do this normally, I would say border width, right? And define it as 2 pixels. So it's still the same thing. Then border radius, border top, border width, border style. I might just say border style of solid, right? And then border color, border border color of red, right? So instead of, it's just shorthand, instead of doing that, I might just quickly do this. 2 pixel, right? Solid red. You get it now, right? So this is the same thing as this. So as you move on and you get comfortable, it will be good that you use the shorthand, right? That's for color. Then we also have background. So there are times you need to apply background, whether image or color. So here now you're applying background color of off-white, right? F0, F0, F0. So we also have background image. So, and the way you use background image here is that you use this URL function to actually point to where the image lives. So the image part is here. So the way this works now is going to show the image. If the image is not there, it's going to have the background color of F0, F0 will serve as a fallback, right? So I don't want to waste time here. You've seen that I've been using background color or this white to actually test things. You just need to be aware of those properties. We also have margin. So margin controls the space outside an element border. So every element, I will still talk about box model. Every element is a box. And if you can visualize a box, every box has a border. And there is an outside part of the border. And there is an inside part of the box, There's an outside part of the box, there's an inside part of the box, and there's a content to every box, right? So the space outside the border of a box is the margin. The space outside the border of a box is the margin. So here now we are saying this div should have margin of 20 pixels, which means that outside this div, outside the border of this div, we want 20 pixel space, right? We'll still talk about units of measurement. So 20 pixel is just 1 unit. We have REM, we have reminutes, we have percentages and all that, right? So I won't be able to dish out all that in one video. We also have padding. Padding controls the space inside an element's border, right? Controls the space inside an element's border. We have here padding of 10. Don't forget I said the space inside an element's border is the space between the border of the element and its content, right? Every box has a content. The space between the border of that box and the content represents the padding. There are times that things are too tight, you just want to space them out, you use padding, right? So we also have border. I've used border already, so I'll move away from this. As border around an element. And if you want to visualize that, right, it's easy to visualize. I think I've done that already somewhere, but let's just demonstrate that again. This particular div, this LO, right? Let's just say border of this, right? So that we can see how that works. So you can see that border right now. Then font size, this is very important also. So there are times that you need to make the text big or small, right? We use font size and you just apply the unit to it. So for instance, if I want the paragraphs in here to have something big, I might just say font size of, let's say 30 pixel. 30 pixel will be bigger than what we have currently. So before I save, if I come here, right, I expect this to become bigger once I save. So you can see now that it became bigger, right? That's because I increased the font size. So I think lastly, we have width and height, right? Defines the dimensions of an element. So there are times that you want to define the dimension of an element. For instance, now you can see that this is taking the full width and height right here. I might say I want it to be 200 by 200. Here now I might just say let the width here be, I might even say 100 pixel, which should be smaller than what we have. So you can see now that the width is now just 100 pixel, right? So of course, if I say height should be 100 pixel, it's going to overflow. The content will overflow. Height of 100 pixel. We should talk about overflow, right? 100 pixel. So you can see now that the content now overflows. The content now overflows the container, right? Because the container is now restricted. The container is restricted in width and can no longer hold the content. So I think that's it. Summary CSS selectors allow you to target specific elements on the web page. So why properties define how those elements should be styled. Understanding how to use different types of selectors, combinators, pseudo classes, and pseudo elements allows for more precise and efficient styling of web pages. Very, very important, right? You can't jump this part. Most people jump it and they just know that they say do this, do that. No, you need to take time to read this thing and understand it, just like I've demonstrated here, right? So now the final lap here is to actually style our page. I'll remove everything here, right, that we have currently. That resets what we have back to what we had before, right? I'll remove also what I added to the HTML page that is not part of the page. Now I will just start styling the page, right? Just so that we apply. So, all right, let's start styling now, just so that we have what looks exactly like this. And again, I will buttress what I've explained already so that you know where I'm applying, when I'm applying them. So let's start with the head section. So usually when you are working, there are some resets that you need to do. For instance, I know now that the browser agent already applies some default padding and margin, and I don't want it confusing me, so I'll remove it, right? So, and the way to do that, since I'm going to remove it from all elements, we spoke about universal selector, right? So, which is asterisk, I will use that, curly braces. So whatever rule I define here now, we apply to all the elements. I want the margin to be set to 0, right? Can you see now? Then I also want the padding to be set to 0. So there is something else I want to set that we've not talked about, which is box sizing. I did mention that every element is a box. There's what we call box model, right? I won't want to go into this detail of box model, but I will just use that property. Then I will tell you what it does. So box sizing, we have different options here, but I will use border box. And what this means is that it ensures that padding and margin are included in the element's width, right? So because if you don't do that, the padding and borders will not be included in the total width of that particular element. So, right, that's just the basic explanation I can give now until we go into box model. So then let's move to we want to use the body elements, right? These are an element now. I want to target, so this, if you want me doing this way, this is going to be elements selector, right? So that we group it and you are clear on what is happening. This one is universal selector, right? So for this particular one, I want to apply some, now that I've selected with the body element, I want to apply some properties. So font family. So I didn't really talk about font family, but if you are used to the Word document, right, you should be aware of that already. The New Times Roman and all that, they are all font family. So here, just to keep things simple, I'm going to use Arial. Although you have a library where you can check out for other ones, right? But I'll just keep it simple, Arial. Then let it fall back to sans serif. So if Arial is not available. Then let's also set the line heights to, these are properties that you get used to. Line height to 1.6. You can see that it stretched it increased the line height of each element and they are stretched. Then we also have background color. Don't forget that the background color here is dark. So I want to also set that, right? Background color of ash 121212. All right, so we are getting there. Then let's have color of the color property, which is the text property now, F0, 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 off-white. So you can see now that this is sitting well, right? So apart from that, let's move to another thing. Let's now start the head section, right? And we have an element that, we have an ID that targets that. If you check here, we have this main header. Is an ID. So the way you target an ID is using hash, right? So here I'll just come down and say So I would say here, ID selector. And here we are going to have hash main header. So this now allows us to target this section, right, where we have my elegant blog and all these nav items. So inside there, we just want to apply background color of hash 1E, 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 right? So you can see that it's this color now is different from here. This is darker, and that's the same thing that we have here, right? This is not as dark as what we have here. So that's it for that part. Then I want to set the color, right? Color to hash FFF, which is plain white, right? Then the padding. So don't forget I've mentioned what padding is all about. The space between the border and the content of the element, 20 pixel. So 20 pixel here applies to padding. We have different ways of representing padding. Padding to the right, to the left, to the top, and to the bottom. So every box, if you know, every box have top, right, bottom, left. The same way you can apply padding, space to the right, to the left, to the top, to the. So here is just one way of saying, let's have 20 pixel space to all the size, right? So and you can see the effect here. I have this space here, and I have this equal space here. Then apart from that, we can also have test align property. So which allows us to actually, you can see that this is aligned to the left now. So in the design, things are aligned to the center, right? So I'm going to use that also to align things to the center. All right, you can see that this is moved to the center now. At some point, I'm going to remove this this default style that comes with links and UL. All right, so that's it with that section, the using ID selector, right? You can see that I've not used anything that I've not explained already in the CSS selector concepts that we explained. So now let's try and style these navigation elements. So I have, if you notice this, I have inside here, I have nav, and this nav have items, the UL and all that. So I can use descendant selectors here, right? You can just call this, let's say, descendant selector, right? Descendant selector. And here I will just use nav. We have just one nav. So in case you have many navs and you don't want all of them, you will be more specific. But now that I know that it's just one nav, fine. Then we have UL inside that nav, right? Same here. Nav, UL. UL is a direct child of nav here. So I won't even be going that way. I'll just use space here, which means UL must be a descendant of nav, which is correct, right? There, I want the list style. So every element, every UL has a list style property. I want to set it to none so that this will be removed, right? It's this by default. So you can see that that is removed, right? Then I also want to display flex. I didn't really talk about flex, and I will not go into this, right? But when I use display flex, it's going to rearrange. Okay, let me just talk about this briefly, right? Flex actually allows you to control the children of a particular parent, right? So normally in terms of children-parent relationship, children should be able to exercise some level of control over their children, right? So that's the same way I want to say flex. So flex allows you to actually move the children of an item around. So for instance, now if you look here, I have UL, which is the parent container, right? And I have a list of items here, 1, 2, 3. So if I use display of flex on this UL, which is the parent of this, have control over these ones and can move them around. So by default, when I use display of flex, it changes the direction of all the children to the horizontal. So when I say display of flex now, you will see that it's going to, by default, move them to the horizontal, right? Can you see that? So if I want to move them back, we have another property called flex direction, right? I can now say column, right? We should move them along the vertical again. but I want it to be row. So it's the default. So you don't need to specify it. It's the default, right? Then I want to use another property, which is the justify content to the center. Again, we'll still talk about Flexbox, right, in the upcoming video. So if this is too much for you, fine. But I just believe that you should be able to be up and running with this explanation. Then we have a justify content center. You can see that things are at the center already, right? Padding top. Padding top. So you see now that I'm not applying the padding to all these sides. It's just the top, padding top of 10 pixels, right? So you can see now that this is there. So we'll still space it and apply some style by the time I'm styling links. So, but I think that's okay for that section and things are shaping out, right? So let's move on to the next thing. I want to use child combinator here. Child combinator. And how do we represent that? I have nav, I have UL, right? And I have, okay, this is still actually descendant, not child. So this is the descendant. Let's just say descendant. Right, so here I'm just saying the list must be a child of the UL must be a child of the nav, not direct children now. So here I'll just say margin, I'm targeting the margin right? I'm targeting each of these items. Each of them are in a list, right? So margin right of 20 pixels. So can you see now that this became spaced out, right? If you are coding along, this will be sweeter, right? It will just click and make sense. Then we have the child selector now. Child selector, or let's just child combinator selector. All right. Here, let's say nav, UL that is inside nav, LI that is inside nav. So to this point is still descendant. But the moment I go to the list, so I want to say only an anchor element that is a direct child of list, right? Only an anchor element that is a direct child of list. The UL is not necessarily a direct child of the nav, right? But it must be a descendant on the nav. The list is not necessarily a direct child of this, but it must be a descendant. But here, the anchor must be a direct child of the list, right? And here I just want to say color should be white. Color should be ash FFF, right? So that should pick this up. Let me see. Okay, this should be white. So anytime your rule is not applied, you just have to look closely. There must be a typo. Okay, yeah, so this should be ash, right? All right, so you can see now that this is white. This is white. So let's move on. Now I think we are done with this section. Is that? Okay, yeah, so we'll still start this guy and give them their yellow color, but we'll come back to that. Right, so let's just move on. I want to move on to quickly style the read more. Or let me just do the about section quickly, right? The about section here, which is the next thing. So I'll just say about, and here we have, if you look at the design, right? If you look at here, we have, what is it? About section, we have ID of about. So I also have ID of post, right? And both of them, about and post, if you look at it very well, they have a common style. Look at about me, look at latest post, right? So I want to first of all target that. And the way you do that, usually there's what we call don't repeat yourself as much as possible, right? If you can do the same thing together with a single selector, right? If you can apply the same rule by just grouping selectors, you should do that. And that's what I'm going to do here. I have hash about, then comma. Anytime you use comma, that's what we call group selector, right? Hash about, comma, hash post. So now I'm targeting both posts. I'm targeting both about and post, and I'm going to apply the same CSS rule to them. So both of them, like I've shown you, they have something common. So here I'm going to call it group selector. So this is a bonus because I didn't talk about it when I was presenting the slide. So here I just want padding. So I want padding of 20 pixels. I've explained what that is, right? Space to the right to be top, bottom, right, left, and to all the corners. Then we have margin, the same thing, 20 pixel. That space outside the border, right? Then background color of hash 1E, 1E, 1E. So if I show you that, you notice that this is having the same background color with what we have here, right? Which is 1E, 1E, 1E. So the same thing here. That's why I'm applying that in group. So here we can just have, let's just look at what we're having currently. Background color of 1E, 1E, 1E. Then border radius of 8 pixels. Border radius is another property that you need to be aware of. So you will notice that here we have the I don't know whether you can see, this box have more like curved edges, right? So that's the border radius. Here I'll just say border radius of 8 pixels. So I've saved it. Let me look at what we have currently. So if you can see, this is having some borders, right? The edges, maybe if I want to see very well, I can just use 30. So can you see now that we have that border radius applied, right? So I'll leave it back to 8 pixel. So things are shaping out properly now. Then so let's move to something else. Both of them have heading 2, right? So let's type that heading 2. So this one is going to be elements selector, right? And this one is H2. That's why I call it element selector, because we are using the element to target it. Margin bottom. So all the H2, these guys, right, should have margin to the bottom, space to the bottom, right, of 15 pixel. Just take note, once I save, you see that there will be space between here and the text. So you can see that 15 pixel to the bottom. Then we also have font size. Just to increase that, I'll use 2EM, right? This is more responsive. I will not go into that detail. We'll still talk about that, right? But 2EM is another unit of measurement, which is more responsive than using pixel. And you can see that things are shaping out well now. The text is bigger than what we had before. Then we want to set the color to hash E6 7E22, which is that yellow light color, right? So you can see that. CSS styling is actually, it takes carefully implementing a design, right? And you need to know the rules. If not, it's going to frustrate you. So in this particular somewhere, I think I have highlights. Let me check here. Okay, here, web development and there. So let me apply that highlight style, right? If you notice, I have this here, highlights. All right, let's use, this one is going to use class selector. So just say class selector. I deliberately space this out. I deliberately use different selectors so that you get convenient with the selectors and how they work. Dot highlight, because it's a class, we use dot. So color should be this, right? And the font weight should be bold. The font weight is just talking about the weight of fonts weights. Okay, should not be comma. Font weight. Font weight should be bold. right? Which just means that the text should actually be bold. So if I come here, so you can see now that I have this particular part where I have span with a class of highlights. Those tests are targeted and the color is actually applied. So we are making progress, right? Now let's to the heading 2. Don't forget that I have some, I have this here, this particular emoji. I want to apply it now. So here I'm going to use, I'm going to call this, I'm going to use pseudo elements, right? Because we want to insert an icon, right? Before or after the H2 element. So here I'm just going to say H2. Don't forget I said pseudo element uses double column, and I'll say before, right? Before, what do you want? The content should be, what do you want to insert? The content should be this. I'll just copy that star again. So this video will be a bit long, but I just have to do this straight away. Here we have this, right? So we have the content to be that star. That's what we want to insert. Then we say display of inline block. So if you remember, I've talked about the fact that elements have some basic display property. If you don't remember that, you can rewatch the HTML series. So we have the inline block, right? And we have the block elements. We have the inline and we have the inline block, right? So this just means that items are going to be able to sit next to one another. Then we have margin, margin to the right so that there is space, margin to the right of 10 pixel. So 10 pixel. If I check here, right, you notice that when I insert, after inserting this next to this, there's a space between them. That's what this is doing. Margin to the right, right? Margin to the right of that particular icon you are inserting, which is here, 10 pixel. So if I come back here and save, see, it's already there. When I save that space, so you can see that it's already inserted, right? So that's how to use pseudo elements. So I've not used anything I've not explained today, and that's the aim of this. And then we have, then we quickly do the footer section, right? Because it's almost like rounding up gradually. So the footer section, which is this part, right? Let me quickly do that one. I just want to, this one is element selector in case you are wondering. Element selector, and that's because we are using element as a target. So I want background color to be hash 1E, 1E, 1E. So if you notice the original, that's what we have. Can you see that here, right? Then I want padding, because this is too tight. Padding of 15 pixel, right? So if I save that, you can see that things are shaping out already. That background color of 1F, 1E, 1E, 1 is already there, right? So I want to move things to the center. So again, I've used this property before, test align, right? Test align to the center. If I save, you can see that this is now at the center, right? Then I want to apply border top. Border top of 2 pixel solid, then hash 333. So that will just, can you see now? If you can see, you have this border top applied to that footer section. So let's deal with the icons, right? The links, the social links inside that particular footer. So here I'm going to use descendant selector again. So descendant selector. And here I'm going to just say footer. Hey, so meaning that all anchor elements that is descendant of the footer element. So whatever I'm doing now will not apply to these ones. These are also anchor elements, but they are not inside the footer, right? Here I'm going to have color of ash, F0, F0, right? And which is of white. You're also going to have margin of 0, 10 pixels. So I've not used this before, this other shortcut. So when I do this now, this means this first one means margin to the top and bottom right value is 0. The margin to the left and right value is 10 pixels, right? And you notice that these are now spaced out and the color is already applied, right? So when I hover on them, I want the color to change. So I can now use the class selector plus pseudo class. So this where I will be using pseudo class, right? I'll use pseudo elements up there when I inserted this tag. So here we're just going to have footer. So we want to track the over state, which is a pseudo class. So when that is over upon, we want to apply the color of ash 3498 dB. All right. So when I come here and over on this, you can see that the over effect kicks in, right? So then let's also target when the links actually have. So this might not directly apply here, but I'll still use it. So this is more like attributes, just so that everything I've explained today is represented. Attribute selector. So let's say we are selecting an anchor element where href is equal to, so this is an attribute now, href is equal to, so when href contains this, right? So that means that we are going to have this style applied. So color of, let's say ash FO, this. So this is how you actually select link elements with actually HTTPS like this. So we are saying it's not all links that this will apply to, right? It's going to apply to only links with href attribute and HTTPS value. Then just to, I think I'm moving towards wrapping this this up. The icons that we have, right? Let's also style them. The font awesome icons. So I can just use descendant selector here. So this one is descendant. This video is getting long. Descendant selector. So here we have nav, UL, list, anchor, I. And if you have been following me, you know that we have that, right? Where is that? So here, inside here, we have nav, we have UL, we have list, we have anchor element, we have I. So I'm just saying this element that is actually a descendant of the link and like that. So this is a descendant selector. And I'm saying the color should be ashy this, right? And the margin right, so that we have space. Margin right should be 8 pixels. So once I save it, right, you notice that these icons here now have this color, right? And they have space. There's space to the right between the text and this. Now, the post itself, you notice that I have not started the post, but this is already shaped. This is done. So the post section now, I think that's what is actually left. So the post section have post title, which is, where is it? Post, all right. I have ID of post, which I've styled generally with the other one. Now I have class of post, and I have class of post title to style the post title, post content to style the post content, read more. So I just want to apply those styles so that what we have here will represent what we want. You can see what we have here, right? Let me just say post. Then here we are going to have dot post, and we are going to have padding of 15 pixel, right? Once I save it, can you see now? Immediately, we have space to this side, to the left, space to the right, top and bottom. Then we want margin bottom of 15 pixel, right? So if I scroll down, this also has space to the bottom. Then we want the background color to be ash. That should be 2B. And if you notice this, you see that the background color here, right? Background color here is different from what we have here. So it's subtle, but it's also different. And that's what makes this look good. If I save that now, so can you see now? Each post is now having this light dark color, right? Which makes this comes out well. Then the card too, this is sharp now. I want it to be rounded, the edges. So I'll use border radius for that. Border radius of 8 pixel. Sorry if my voice is getting dried already. 8 pixel. And so let's tie this title, right, that we have here. Dot post title. That's the class that I placed on it. You might need to reference the style, the title, the classes again if you are confused, right? Color of ash F0, which is off-white. Then that is what we have already. I'm not specifying again because I know you should already know that this is a class selector, right? Because of the period. Then we also have dot post dash content. So dot post dash content, which is talking about this paragraph, right? So here we are going to have color of DDD, color of hash DDD. That's for the post content now. Then, so this particular one, you notice that here I have this this icon here, right? So I will also want to bring it in. It's more like an emoji anyway. So you should be able to do that by now. All you need to do is target this element and use pseudo elements after, right? Selector. So let's do that also. Here we are going to have dot post title. That's what we are targeting. Then for that element after it, right, is where we now want what we want to insert. We want to insert that note, right? That note emoji. So just say contents. The note emoji, I'll just copy it from here so that we can use quickly. Right. So if you are looking for emojis to copy, you can just go to emojipedia.org, right? You'll be able to search for any emoji here to use. Here, just paste that here and save it, right? Then I want, okay, here I didn't see after, sudo after. Then here I want margin to the left so that the icon, the notes will actually have space here. I just want to be able to visualize what I'm doing, right? Here, I want space, the note will be here. I don't want it to sit next to S. So if I want space between selectors and the node that will be inserted here, I need to use margin left to the node that will be inserted. So margin margin left of 10 pixel. Now you can see that that is coming in, right? In both places. Since I'm using classes, whatever is applied there is applied to this, right? Then what else? So I think what is left now is actually the read more, right? So let's look at the read more side of things. So for the read more, I think I have some classes. So I have the class of read more, right? And I'll be using that. So for the read more, let me look at what I want to apply. So the read more is having, when I hover, right? You can see it's having the hover state, the color change. Then there's this arrow that is also inserted, right, from the CSS. So here, what we just do is just say dot read dash more, which is this is a class selector, right? The color should be hash 3498 dB. So once I save it, let's be looking at it. So you can see that the color has changed here, right? Then the text decoration should be none. So text decoration, once I set it to none, it's going to remove this underline. So underline is what we have by default. So once I say none, it's going to remove it, right? If you don't practice well, these things will not stay, right? You need to practice well. All these properties will become very easy, right? And so let's insert the right arrow. So here I'm going to be using pseudo element selector after. So dot read more. So after the dot read more, don't forget pseudo selector double colon. After this dot read more, I want to insert it here. So after dot read more, just say after. Let's insert content. And in this case, the content is going to be that arrow head. Let me just copy this. Paste it here. All right. So, and that's just what I want there. Of course, if you want to have color, we can always do that. So you can see that that is there. Okay, I need space, right? So let's just say margin left. Let's say margin left of 4 pixels, so that there's a breathing space. All right, so you can see that. Now, when I hover, the color should change to this. That is not happening yet. So the way to do that is to use the pseudo class selector, right, which allows us to target that state, and that is over. The over pseudo class is what we're using. So read more. Then since it's pseudo class selector, we are using single column and non-double column, like when we did pseudo element selector. So this is going to be over, right? And this is going to have color of hash E67E22. All right, so when I hover, that is done. So you can see that we have learned a lot, and we have also replicated it in practice, right? So, and that is how, okay, I think here, I don't know, let me check here. When I hover here, is there an over state on it? Okay, the color is changing when I hover on this. Let me also implement that quickly. All right, so let's just add this effect so that when we hover on these elements, we can also have that here to wrap this up, right? I think we also need to remove these designs. So here we can just quickly say nav UL. So here we are going to use child selector, nav UL greater than li, right? Greater than a. So this is saying the anchor elements must be a direct child of the list element. The list element must be a direct child of the UL, right? So we want the font size to be 1.2 EM. Then we want the text decoration to be removed, none, right? So you can see that that is gone. Then we want the display to be flex. I've already explained what display is. Allow me to just control the properties, align items to the center. All right, so everything is perfectly displayed. So when I hover on this, I also want to register that. And that is actually nav. So I've done that over and over. List elements, anchor, then over. So meaning that when you hover on an anchor element that is inside the list, inside the URL, inside the, right? This is the descendant relationship. You want to set the color to #3498BD. So when I come in now, I hover on this, you can see that that is done, right? So I think those are the basic things. Then this overstates on other anchor elements that are not necessarily direct children, right? Can also do that. So I will also do this to buttons. So when you also have, although I didn't use button, but this is how you would have done it when you want to combine multiple overstates at the same time. Over on anchor, over on the button, right? So you can set transition. So this property is what I've not used before, but right, it's something that you will see, right? It's just to describe how the text change when you hover, right? The color change, whatever property you define, right? Should the speed of the change, 3 seconds, right? Then he's in, he's out. All right. Basically, I think that is just what I want to capture in this particular series. So we've talked about a lot of things, the different type of selectors, right? And we've also seen different CSS properties. We didn't just see them, we've used virtually everything, right, in this particular project. So that's it. And in the next section, we'll continue to other CSS topics, right? All right. See you in the next section.